Can you really make a living printing planners? How long does it take to get to this six-figure mark in your business? How do you have enough capital in your business to keep buying inventory? And how do you plan for a business that maybe makes most of its money in one season of the year? Today, I'm going to be answering your question on how to truly build a six-figure printing business. We're going to go through the math of it. I'm going to take you through it step by step. So let's dive in. All right, I am so excited to really demystify the process of going from a zero revenue business to six-figure business when it comes to a product like a planner or a journal or devotional business. So I started Horacio Printing back in 2014. We're about to hit our 10-year anniversary this October, and I want to share with you the process of how to get to six figures. And really, it comes down to math. So here's my story a little bit. I started building Horacio in August of 2014, and we launched in October of 2014. I came out with the very first planner, which if you're watching this on YouTube, I do have a copy of it here. Okay, here it is. This was our very first planner that I launched in 2015. Obviously, you can see a lot has changed over the years. Lots of upgrades. This is now, gold corners and tabs, super thick paper. It's got pockets. It comes in a dust bag. And then this was the very first planner, which I still really loved. It had super thick paper. Thick paper is my love language. So if you are a paper snob, you're in the right place. We can be friends. But I have a lot of nostalgia for my first planner. But anyways, so I launched my first planner in October of 2014. And that year, our revenue was around $38,000. But the planner that I bought, it was really expensive to manufacture. I was manufacturing in North America. And I'm actually going to pop my revenue numbers right here on the screen so you can see it. So you can see in 2014, the first year, I made about 38. And it was my second year of 2015 that we were able to hit that six-figure mark. So when you think about when I truly started at the start line, it was August of 2014. And by the December of 2015, we were at the six-figure mark. So it took about a year and a half. And I say that just to have transparency. I didn't make six figures in 3 months. Printing is not a business you can jump into. And if anyone's telling you otherwise, I don't know if I believe them. But printing and publishing is not a business you get into to make quick money in a month. It's something you pour your heart into and you birth like a baby, because it takes about 6 months to get something really made. Now, I got mine made a little faster my first year because I was literally on a sprint. But I like to teach my print school students to really look at it more of a marathon. It's going to take 9 months to get this baby launched, from conception to launch. And I have a video all about the printing timeline. If you want to look at that, I'll drop that link right here. You can save it for later. But I do want you to know that, by 2016, that was really when I quit my job. So it took me a year and a half to get to six figures. And then after I hit six figures, I was like, all right, I think I can quit my job now. So I quit in 2016, which I have a video about that, and really all the steps I would go through in teaching you or guiding you on quitting your job and what that looks like, what kind of safety nets to have in place, things to think about that you might not be thinking about. So I'll drop that link to that video below. But let's talk about, for you, how do you hit six figures with a printing business? What does that look like? So it really all comes down to math. And I'm going to break this down super simple because it all comes down to math. There's two pieces of information you need. You need your goal and your retail price of your product. And that's going to tell you how many you need to sell to get to six figures. So you take your goal. 100K, divide it by the retail price of your product, and that will tell you how many units you need to sell in order to hit your goal of $100,000 in revenue. So let's do an example because examples are super helpful. Let's say you have the goal of 100K. Okay, so we're going to divide that by a retail price of, let's say, $45. So that equals 2222. So that means you need to sell 2,222 units in order to hit that six-figure mark. So my advice would be buy about 2,300 units at that $45 price. Having extra is always good in case some of them are a little messed up in transit, in case some get lost in transit when shipping to customer. It's good to have extra to send out for marketing, PR packages, and just extras to keep for yourself and give as gifts. So that is the math equation, right? So at 100K, you need, in a retail price of $45, you need to sell 2,200 units, okay? Now, let's dial it up a little bit. Let's say, okay, you know what? Maybe I'll sell my product for a little more expensive, I'll sell it at $54 a unit. Okay, well, that changes the math equation. 100K is what you want to hit. If you sell it at $54, you only have to sell 1,851 units to get to that six-figure mark. Pretty great, right? I'll just sell it for more and I can hit that price point. I can hit that goal a lot faster at that price point. So my advice in this equation is to buy about 2,000 units. So here's the name of the game. You need to sell 2,000 units at around $54 each to hit 100K. That's the answer. That's what you have to do. Now, how do we do it? Now, I want to caveat by saying dialing up the price that you charge is not a magical dial you can turn. Like you can't say, well, actually, I'll just sell it for $100 each, and then I only have to sell whatever the math goes out to, right? You only have to sell like 1,000. That's not a magical dial you can just turn, because if you charge too much for your product, people aren't going to buy it at all, right? You have to make sure that retail price that you are putting out there makes sense to your customer and what they can afford and how much value they see in that product. So it's not, unfortunately, just a magical dial you can turn. But if you turn the dial too low, like let's say you're like, I want to sell my product for $20. Like $20 is what I want to sell mine for. Well, let's look at how that changes the equation. If you want to make 100K and you want to sell your product at $20, you have to sell 5,000. Okay, that's a lot more than 2,000. So I would love to advise you to sell something around $54. For me, I'll show you my revenue again. My first year in 2014, I did about 38 grand of revenue. Second year, I did $123,000. The next year, 130. So not a huge growth from 15 to 16, but that was the year I was quitting my job. I got married that year. It was a busy year. I was happy just to sustain where I was. 2017, you can see my revenue doubled. And that's because I started selling my product for more, but I put more value in it. I started selling my kits. So I started, packaging them up in a box, putting a bunch of accessories with it. And I think that first year I sold the kit option at around $75, maybe even $80. I don't quite remember at this point because it was 2016. But I started kitting my products and increasing my retail. But on top of just turning that dial up, I really turned up the dial on the value my product had. I put really awesome products in there. I did a big survey to all my customers to really know, what kind of products do you want to see in the box? What extra accessories would you love to have? And now at this point, all my planners come in a luxury box. All my planners come with a dust bag, with a pen, with stickers, with a couple little items in there that helps increase the value. So I'm never going to go back to selling my planner for $37 a unit. That just doesn't make sense for me. So that's the end of the road here. If you want to have a 100K business, you don't have to, but one way to do it is to sell 2,000 units at $54, and you're going to have over a six-figure business. So how do we do that? How do you actually sell 2,000 units? Like, for some of you watching, you might be going, oh my gosh, that sounds like a lot. Well, you don't have to do it the first year that you launch. It's okay if it takes you your second launch to get to the 100K mark, or even the third launch. That's okay. It's okay to grow slow. And I know that's not what we always want to hear, but it's okay. But the basics of how to actually do it is you're going to have to create a marketing strategy. And with that marketing strategy, you're going to have to get around 50,000 to 100,000 people to your website or to see your product so that they can convert on your website and purchase. So if you look at your conversion rate on your website, it's probably, 1 to 5%. Okay, well, at let's say 3% conversion rate, you need around 80 to 100,000 people to land on your site. Well, how do we do that? Well, that's where you create a marketing campaign, a launch strategy, and you use different channels. You could use TikTok, you can use YouTube. I love YouTube. YouTube is so great for this business genre of printed products. I mean, this is where people go to look at unboxings and things like that. Of course, Instagram is another channel. Our email list, our SMS list is another channel. Facebook groups filled with your ICA, ideal client avatar, is a great channel. In-person events, sponsorships, raffles, also podcasting. So just throwing some ideas out there. There's so many different ways for you to organically reach your target audience and bring them back to your website. So that's the gist of it. You have to have a marketing strategy that's going to bring people to your website in order to convert at least 2,000 people to buy it. And once you do that, yay, you have a 100K business. So this is the question you might be asking. What's the profit? Like, what's the profit though? Because just because you make 100K doesn't mean you get to keep 100K, right? Because profit is revenue minus expenses. So what does it cost to produce 2,000 planners? Can I afford to print 2,000 planners? Well, the good news is once you start buying 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 of something, the cost per unit's going to go down. So your profit's going to be good. But here's the deal. In looking at your expenses for a product-based business, your number one expense is cost of goods sold. COGS is what it's called, cost of goods sold. And that's the big question mark. How much is it going to cost? How much is it going to cost to print 2,000 planners? That seems like a lot of money. How on earth do I do that? So here's the thing that you really need if you want to do this and have the most profit. Ready? You have to have the right printer. You have to have the right printer. And you probably already know this. You're like, yeah, I've been looking for the printer. And I've done a couple videos about print on demand, Amazon KDP, all of these print on demand printers. And for me, that is not the right option because it's too expensive. Your costs to print your product per unit is going to be astronomical. And even just using a traditional printer here in the US, your costs are going to be astronomical. I had a print school student that was looking at a company here in the US called Vervanti, and she sent all the things that she wanted, the specs she wanted on her luxury planner, and I think she was looking at 300 or 500 units, and she got the quote back and it was like $50 a unit. So imagine you sold your planner for $54 and it cost you $50 to make. No bueno, right? That's a big wall to hit. And maybe you've already done that. Maybe you've already reached out to some printers and you were discouraged to see how expensive it is. Maybe you tried to print something at Staples and you saw how expensive it is. Maybe you tried to purchase the materials at home to print it yourself and you saw how expensive it is. Maybe you did a print on demand sample, you got it in the mail, you didn't even love it, and it was still so expensive. So if you've hit that, you're not alone. It's very common. But this is what you need. You need a good printer that can give you the highest quality product at the lowest price possible with still being ethical. So let's just pretend you could get your planner or your journal or your devotional or whatever your favorite product is printed for about $9 to $10 with all the bells and whistles. I'm talking box, dust bag, snap-in bookmark, ribbon, whatever you want, tabs, all the things at around $9 to $10. Would that be amazing? Okay, so let's do the profitability math on a $54 planner. So we're selling the planner for $54 each. So the cost to get that made is $9 printing cost. So that's your cost of goods sold, how much it costs to print it. And then another fee that you might not know about is the importing, which let's say roughly estimated $2 per unit for that shipping, getting it from the printer to your warehouse. Now there's another cost here that you don't have to pay up front, but you do have to pay on the back end if you use a warehouse to do your packing and shipping and all of that, which that's what I love to do. I love to outsource that. I have run 2 different warehouses throughout my career of our product business, but I much prefer to just outsource that now and pay a handling fee. So that handling fee at my warehouse is around $2.50. So if you add all this up, you've got the printing cost, the cost to get it to your warehouse, and then the cost to get it, packed up and shipped to your customer. That total is $13.50. So that's how much it is per unit that you're looking at in total costs. So what you have left is your profit, which is $40. So 54 minus $13.50 is $40. If you take $40 times it by 2,000 units, that is a profitability of $80,000, which is exciting. $80,000 profit. Super great. So that is the total profit per unit. There are other business expenses that are going to eat away at that $80,000. What are they? What could they be? Well, let's talk about it. There are other business expenses you're going to come up against. One of which is your sample fee. So other business costs will be your cost to get your sample printed, which you always have to get a sample printed, okay? So my recommendation is to get at least one printed, and the cost for that is around $150 to $200 typically. And what's fun is if you join Print School, I actually pay for that cost for all of my students because it's just a fun way to give back to them when they hit that milestone. Other costs that you might face are product design. So hiring a designer to design your product. This could cost you $1,000 to $2,000 depending on the complexity of your product. For example, a journal is a lot easier to design than a full-on planner or something that's never been made before or invented before. So that product design is something I always invest in every year. Another cool thing about Print School, my program, is we teach you product design. So I had a designer come into my program and add an entire bonus DIY training if you want to learn how to design on Canva or in Adobe and Illustrator, InDesign and Illustrator, both of those. Another fee you might come up against that would eat away at that profit is a photographer. I really recommend investing in photography. That was also like the only thing I invested in for my wedding was like the photographer, because like it's just what matters. Like you have to put your best foot forward. If you're going to try to sell that $54 price point and dial up that value, like your photography needs to be on point. Your product photography needs to be sharp. So, investing in a good photographer is great. We also teach photography in launch school, but, I love to outsource that as well. Other fees that you might hit if you're just starting your business and you're at the very beginning is you're going to need a website. So hiring a web designer, you might pay $1,000, or you could DIY, of course. And then LLC licensing, setting that up, let's just estimate around $500. So in total other business costs, you're looking at $4,500. So when you subtract that from the 80, you're still looking good. You still got $75,500 of profit. So case in point, there is still plenty of money to be made in the printing business if done correctly. if you have the right printer and the right cost per unit, if you have the right warehousing, if you have the right designer and your product is awesome. You have to create a product that's going to be so beautiful and value driven that you can charge the retail price you need in order to make it profitable. So this is the kind of thing that I just wanted to explain, because a lot of people ask, really, what does it take to get there? How long is it going to take me to get there? And it could take you a year. It could take you 3 years. I'm not quite sure how fast you're going to go through this process, but I wanted you to really see with full transparency what it takes in this business to get to that 6-figure mark. Now, what's really exciting is for my print school students in my program, which if you want more information, that you can go to horacioprinting.com/print school. I pay for your sample. So that's one thing that happens. When you join my program, you get my program, which is Print School 2.0. I take you from the very beginning of the start line on ideation, design. I get your sample printed with my printer. And then after that, I teach you fulfillment. I give you access to my printers. I give you access to my designers. I give you access to my warehouse. I connect you with all of the resources you need. It's basically everything I've learned in the last 10 years, just squished into a course for you to have as a resource for you as you start your printing business. Now, what's really fun is I have a bonus in there called Launch School, which is the next step after you finish print school. And Launch School teaches you how to launch your planner into the world, or your journal or devotional or whatever type of product you're looking to launch. Everything from photography, video, marketing channels, how to set up your website, how to do e-commerce, even how to do your customer service and all those emails and have those canned responses ready. I give you all my templates for my marketing emails, social, all of it. So you can go check out horacioprinting.com/print school. Check out all that it has to offer. And if you want to take the next step, you can actually apply to join Print School. I would love to see your application come through. I would love to help you get this dream started so that you can, start to take the steps to hit your financial goals. But I do want to be transparent. It's not like, oh, I started this course and bam, in 3 months, I'm making 6 figures. I'm not going to lie. That's not how it works. It takes time, but it is such a rewarding process to finally get that dream out of your head and into your hands. And then once you have the product in your hands, one thing I teach you in Print School, which is super fun, is how to do a Kickstarter campaign or a pre-order campaign to pay for your first run. So how to get maybe 50 to 100 people to pre-order your product so that you can start printing with excellence and create something you really, really love for your first print run. So that's something in Print School as well. If you have any questions, or maybe you want to see me cover a specific topic on this show, drop it in the comments below. I would love to answer your questions about running a print business, the production of it, anything really. I'm an open book, so drop your questions below. I would love to create an episode for you. I hope this has been helpful, and I cannot wait to see your application come through. If you want to learn more, I have another free resource for you. It's my workshop, and I teach the dream printing method in my workshop. From how long does it take, how much does it really cost, just all your big burning questions get answered in the workshop. You can go to horacioprinting.com/workshop. Have a wonderful day. You are so loved.